Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I am just in a meeting and I want to make sure that you guys get kicked off okay. So I'm going to stick around and make sure that that happens.
Okay.
But so thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
And so I should maybe pause the recording. I'm going to pause and reclaim the host thing. Oh, there you go. Okay. So thank you for joining us on the Goal 7 call. I'm going to tell you exactly what happened for all transparency. So, or visibility, try to get away from transparency. So, um, Rise of the Rest is coming to Tulsa. And in the past couple of weeks, I've had the pleasure of engaging with some of the people, the students at the University of Tulsa. And one of the interesting things that came up at the University of Tulsa was like this program idea thing, and so totally geeking out and thinking that this is a great thing to have pitched at Rise of the Rest. We started engaging the university professors to try to talk the student into kind of submitting for the Rise of the Rest. Well, they needed facts and figures, and the challenge of having um, business professors talk to you about facts and figures is that we solely needed the thing that went on a slide deck to just say, here's the market and here's the possibilities, right? Not like, I don't need to build out this whole business plan model. I don't need to know. Yeah, I mean, it was just like to get away from that. So I contacted my local library, research librarian. Martha Gregory was a lovely woman, but we had had a small fire at the library last week. So the library was closed. So she was working from home. So then I thought, well, what can I do? And so I reached out to Mel, and Mel Lambert is a library research librarian in St. Louis, and she's part of the ESHIP community. So she's been at the ESHIP Summit, and she's been such a great translator and bridge between the libraries and entrepreneurship and ecosystem builders. So we were talking about how you get to sustainability or an idea or whatever, and talking about how this untapped resource or little known resource should be elevated. So that's the story behind asking Mel to be on this call. I have to hop back into a meeting, and then I will come back out and join you after they disband. But Valdo and Chad and Beth and Norris are great people to help facilitate this call and ask you questions, Mel. And if you can tell us just a little bit broad, high level about the initiative from Urban Library Council and using libraries as a hub for entrepreneurship. Does that sound good?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right, Beth, you are holder of the I don't know what it is that we're doing, the host for the call, and if you'll just kind of continue and maybe figure out. I think what I'd like to have Mel help with is, how do we relay this information to ecosystem builders and entrepreneurs about what the library can and cannot do? And how do we also help share that with other research librarians all over, like in Australia and Finland? Like, how do you encourage them to be great ecosystem builders in that way, just like Mel is? So it's kind of twofold. Does that make sense?
For sure.
Okay, so I will see you in a few minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think, first of all, the agenda link was the wrong agenda. So is anyone willing to serve as a scribe today?
I can.
Oh, Chad, you're awesome. Thank you. With that, I think because of time, and we've been running out of time in these calls, if you guys don't object, let's jump right into hearing from Mel.
Sounds good.
Great. Welcome, Mel. You are on stage.
Okay, cool. Well, one of the things that Celia originally asked me to talk about. So I have had limited involvement with the Kauffman Foundation and the Urban Libraries Council initiative. So I went to the very first conference, but I didn't go this year. So I do have like a base knowledge of the things that they're doing. But one of the other things she asked me to talk about was when ecosystem builders come to the library, what are some ways they can ask questions of the librarians so that the librarians can best help them find the information, even if they aren't themselves ecosystem builders or in the business world, that kind of thing. And then also talk a little bit about like what are some things that research librarians can't do or can't answer, and what are some other ways that we kind of connect people to other resources in the ecosystem. So the Urban Libraries Council is really doing what ESHIP kind of did. So right now they're trying to put together a playbook basically for librarians to be able to help entrepreneurs better. And so that's kind of the goal, is to put that together and get it out there and get it out to other libraries. I don't know exactly where they are in that process, but yeah. So what kinds of questions do you guys have?
I guess I'd like to understand more about how your particular library system or library really engages with entrepreneurs and guiding them through your ecosystem.
So we are very lucky because we have a ton of resources that can help entrepreneurs. So we have access to different data, market data, industry reports, all different kinds of information that people don't really realize the libraries have, and a lot of, especially the larger systems in some of the bigger cities, so the urban libraries have these same resources. So entrepreneurs come in to get information, but we also kind of connect entrepreneurs, connect different ecosystem builders to each other. So if we don't have, like we don't work with funding, libraries don't fund entrepreneurs, but we put them in touch with, oh, here's these 5 or 6 organizations in St. Louis that do that. Here's your funding opportunities. We have databases for grants that people can look up grant money. And so we teach them how to use those tools so that they can move forward and do that. On the other side of it, we also have workforce development tools. So things like helping people find jobs or get skills that they didn't have before, to be able to do some of, the higher tech jobs and things like that. We also, again, connect them to different organizations who provide those services. So like in St. Louis, we have Launch Code, which is a company that solely teaches people how to code and then places them in jobs to fill that like technology gap. And so we throw programs, we have people come in and teach on marketing, on different funding options and finances and things like that. I go out to businesses and teach them how to use our data. We also do one-on-one sessions. So an entrepreneur can come in and have a one-on-one session with one of our research librarians, and kind of help them figure out exactly what information they are looking for and where that information lives.
So how do people know all of that is available? What kind of outreach do you do? And are you guys perceived as the convener of the entrepreneurial ecosystem?
Yeah, so I guess there's kind of twofold. So the one-on-one sessions usually lead to somebody passing word of mouth, passing that along. Hey, I went to the library and figured out all this information for my pitch. You should go there. And then also just our relationships with the other community builders. So people like the SBA, or other organizations like we have Operation Hope here. I think they're pretty national. So is SCORE. But we just have relationships with a lot of different groups who then also feed people to us as well. And you know, of course, we promote it on our website and things like that.
Thank you. And so the other half of that, or second question that I threw in there was, is the library seen as the convener for the ecosystem?
I don't necessarily know quite yet if we are. I definitely think we kind of view ourselves that way because we do have all of these different connections with different organizations. So I do think it's something that we're working towards. And I mean, especially here in St. Louis, I would say that a lot of the organizations are starting to view us that way, where they come to us and say, hey, can we put this together with you at your location and, you know, tap into your existing base and things like that. So that is starting to happen more and more than it used to.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'll shut up and let somebody else ask.
Well, I'm happy. Regarding Operation Hope, have you met the shy retiring John Bryant?
I have not.
He is
No.
an amazing cat. He's one of these people I ran across centuries ago at some event, and he was really kind of, you know, I kind of got this idea I'm working on, and everyone's like, we're in the elevator, and everybody's going, fucking do it, you know. It was,
Yeah.
but and it was so amazing, and you know they, you know, he's an untapped national resource. I hope that Christine is chasing him as an RP. Here in Boise, we actually seen billboards for libraries, the original Third Space,
Yeah.
and even one where they have like the Starbucks logo with the, you know, the circle with the red circle with a bar across.
Yeah.
that you're going to, you know, it unnerves people to go to the, wait, I can sit there and read a book while drinking coffee in the library.
Yeah.
And in fact, the mode seems to be in libraries that I've gone to a couple libraries that basically have no books anymore. Dead trees are, you know, in 20 years, we won't have dead trees anymore in libraries because it's all electronic. And it's, what was it? UC Merced, their library was far noisier than the student cafeteria.
Yeah.
They had no books, but it was just absolutely electric in terms of the environment. And here are two things to Beth's questions. One is they convened some events and they partnered with the wrong people who basically pretty much shut the librarians out of their own meeting. That was not nice. But the good side is part of our new state rural growth initiative. The head of libraries for the state is a full partner in this because all the rural libraries, no matter how small, still are an absolute gold mine of information in rural communities. And in small towns, they often already are the convener of choice for any events. So the rural areas, I'm very excited. I talked with the state director of libraries, and I thought he was going to wet himself. He was so excited. I mean, there was beer involved, but it was that the collegiality, the power. Yeah, I'm a research PhD, so you don't have to sell me on what research librarians can do. I would not be done without that, your help. But I just think the power of, you know, the question about getting out the word, it may be easier in small towns. But, you know, I walk in library and they had one of the best maker labs in the city.
Yeah.
Nobody knew it. They have money for the 3D printer, but they don't have any money for marketing.
Yeah.
Is there any advice that you have for us on how we can help libraries everywhere, you know, evangelize what they have, we'd be terribly grateful.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is really just telling people and getting the word out. I never shut up about it. And, you know, I'm always on social media and things like that, posting about the different events. And even though I'm always posting about it, inevitably somebody will be like, hey, I didn't know the library did that. And I think it's just about raising the awareness of all of the different resources that the library has. And to your point about libraries not really being quiet anymore, there are a lot of libraries who now have co-working spaces inside of them. Places, so basically free space for small business owners to come and work and set up. And you can be on your cell phone in a lot of libraries now. We have sections where you can't be on your cell phone, but if somebody came in and they were like, oh, I have a webinar or something, can I, connect? Yeah, just take your laptop over there and you can talk all you want.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrific. I was in Amsterdam and I was meeting a colleague and said, well, it's raining, so let's go to their library that's near Central Station, and we get to the top of it. They still have books, by the way.
Yeah, so do we.
There's a pub and a deli. I mean, like a good pub, good deli.
In the library?
In the library.
That's awesome.
Because they were they're basically funding it. They were funding like almost their entire fixed cost with by that and catering events that were being held in the library.
Yeah.
And so yes, the beer was overpriced, but it certainly was. It just tickled me to do that, and they said never had any problems with people getting crazy, occasionally screaming small children running around. But
sure,
Perth or the Dutch, they're a little bit that may be a cultural thing, but it just felt like home.
Yeah.
And it's been
space, right? It's like the Sweden or Switzerland of any community, where I firmly believe that they should be the convener of the ecosystem and the supporter of all the entrepreneurial support organizations and being supported and funded to help get the word out in a sustainable way so that grows and continues. So, sorry, Norris, I interrupted you there, I think, but did you have another question?
The only other question is, gee, once again, I talked too much. Sorry. Go ahead. I'm done.
Mel, what do you know about the Urban Library Council and the committee that's working on the playbook? And is there a way to somehow connect with them? I would think that the ESHIP community could be helpful.
Yeah, so let's see. So they have a website. Let me pull it up. Okay, so here it is. And I really don't know where they are in the process. I know that they kind of finished up gathering data from the core group of, I think there were 12 or 13 libraries that were part of it. And so they kind of put together, they did their information gathering. And they do have some kind of best practices, I guess, out there for libraries who want to, be more involved in the ecosystem and that kind of thing, but I don't think they necessarily have a completed playbook. If you want, I can pass along to my boss that you guys are interested in talking to somebody over there. She's had more contact with the Urban Libraries Council than I have.
Okay, yeah, that'd be cool.
Okay.
So when you does anyone else have something they want to ask or comment on?
Yeah, I will. Mel, it's fantastic. Thank you so much. It's really exciting. I'm curious because there's a lot of libraries that
Oh, I
don't follow
can't
this path.
hear.
Can you hear me? Testing 1, 2.
I can hear
Hello,
you.
hello. Can you hear me, Mel?
So I didn't hear the question.
All right. Can
I
you hear
don't
me now?
I don't know if the audio is not working. I'm not. Am I the only one who can't hear?
Walter, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Chad. So I
I
think
can too.
it's
All right. Can you hear anyone else, Mel?
Can you hear others, Mel?
I think she's going to need to dial back in or something.
Okay, can we try again?
Testing 1, 2. Hello.
Mel, can you hear anyone? So guys, help me get to how this aligns with sustainable work with her.
Okay, I'm back on.
Cool.
Well-
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Awesome. No, one of the questions I had, it sounds like really exciting in regards to the libraries, but not all libraries do this. And a lot of almost everything you're describing sounds like running an innovation hub, but backed by the business model of a library. How did it all start in your library? Like, at what point did you go from saying we're a library to now we're going to support entrepreneurs, we're going to do the research for them, we're going to run events, we're going to run programs, we're actually going to go out and educate them in the community? How did that all evolve? Was it the decision of the organization, or was it one individual inside? Where'd that come from?
So it started before I got here, and I'm not sure if at that time it was really, the one individual who started it kind of saying, yep, we're going to do this, but I know they've been doing it here for at least 5 or 6 years, maybe longer. And so it's kind of been something that was always important. And as it kind of grew, I think the administration really got on board with it. And it just became, I don't know, something that kind of naturally happened here. And then it did become more of a hot topic, right? So other libraries are doing it and doing really, really cool things. Even like in Brooklyn, I think Brooklyn Public Library actually has a competition where they give monetary reward for a business plan. And so there are a lot of people doing a lot of really cool things in this space. And I think here it just started to kind of evolve naturally out of probably a need in the community that people wanted. And so I think as far as like getting started for other libraries, yeah, so like we have a lot of resources that other libraries don't have. But I think about whenever I go to another library's website, when they tell me like, oh, we can't, we don't have the resources you have, and I immediately pull up their databases and I talk to them and I'm like, yeah, but you have this, this, and this, and these are things that can help entrepreneurs. So I think it's really about understanding what you have and how you can use it to help people in the community build workforce development, builds the entrepreneurial system, things like that. So I think if you want to be involved in that space, it's more about taking a look at what you already have and also what are some of the open access resources. So we may not have something that has that information, but librarians are really good at figuring out where that information exists, even if we don't subscribe to something that has it. So we're just really good at figuring out and finding data and information for you, even if it's not something that the library owns. And to your point, I think you said, doing the research for people. We don't like do research for people. So that is one of the things that we're not doing the research for you. We're pointing you and helping you figure out where those resources live, but we're not necessarily sitting down and putting plans together for you. I know that Tulsa, they do that, but they do it for a cost and they charge for it. So there are libraries who will put research together for you, but I think that more and more they're starting to charge for that service.
Thanks for that. And maybe I'll just touch on something that Beth started with as well, as far as the relationship of the library then contributing to the overall sustainability of the ecosystem and sustainability of the work. And part of that, it sounds like the hubs have developed out of a sustainable model because the libraries have, because the libraries are funded in a way, and this is an extension of existing service.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas many innovation hubs and ecosystem building type stuff, it exists solely for the purpose of supporting entrepreneurs. So maybe just a few comments as well on how the support, this additional ecosystem or entrepreneur support aligns with the core funding and the core model of a library, and how that might be different from other people doing similar services in a region.
So I'm trying to make sure I understand correctly, just basically like how us already being funded helps us be more sustainable, or?
Yeah. How the work of supporting entrepreneurs aligns with the core business of libraries, and how you see yourself as maybe different from other people with different models doing similar things in a region.
Yeah, so in the St. Louis metro area, we have 3 really large library systems. We have St. Louis County, where I am, we have St. Louis City, and then we have St. Charles City County. And every single one of our systems does something very different when it comes to this type of work. So we have really kind of championed it, and we've worked really hard to build something up, whereas St. Louis Public has a lot of the same resources we have, but they don't do as much of like the outreach and things like that to make people really known. But they also have a patent and trademark resource center from the patent and trademark, the USPTO. So we don't have that here. So when I get people who are inventors and things like that, I send them to the other system. So we do work really well together. And that's something I think that you wouldn't get in necessarily a smaller area or rural area, because you wouldn't have other resources to kind of fall back on, right? We're very lucky. And if you live in any one of those 3 areas, you can get a card at the other library. We have reciprocal programs, so it's not a big deal. You can go wherever you want and get that information. So as far as the funding and setting that up and things like that, I think that, for your library, their administration, the library administration and the library board really has to get behind it and make it a priority, because there are other places people can spend that money. And we're seeing that happen actually at the St. Charles Library, where for a long time they had, they were the business hub for people in the metro area. And when I started, people would be like, oh, do you know Trevor? You must know Trevor. Like, he's the guy I always go to for stuff like this. And I was like, great, like, awesome. And I finally met Trevor, and he was great and awesome. And but they've done some restructuring of their priorities, and they are focusing more on reaching the unhoused community and things like that. And so they've actually cut back on the amount of resources that are going to the businesses. So while, there is sustainable funding coming in, sometimes where that money goes within a library organization is put elsewhere or prioritized based on the needs of the community.
Is Trevor still at that library?
He is, yeah. They actually, I think he is like an assistant manager at a branch now. They kind of folded that business program like up into, they had a nonprofit person and a business person, and they folded it up into one job. And so, but yeah, he is still out there.
Yeah, that's interesting. So when we talk about sustainability, quite often the work, and this, so much of what you say resonates with other conversations we've had where people say, oh, you got to know that guy or that girl who's
Right.
doing that thing, and everybody knows them, and that person becomes in the focal point. The risk of it just being that person or it just being their organization is that it can often be not sustainable. But you also talk about the other risk is that if it's been funded or with inside of a larger institution, they can make decisions where even if Trevor's excellent, he's still with the organization, he may be restructured to a place where he's no longer providing that support in that region.
Right. I mean, just like, you know, your company gets a new CEO or whatever, like in a library, if the administration changes and all of a sudden, you know, their goals are something else. I mean, it's kind of like getting a new mayor of the city or something, you know, they change and they decide something else is important. And so, I don't know, I guess we as librarians kind of have to lobby for the thing that we care about, even within our own organizations.
Yeah, you know, we've even talked about here getting some kind of an MOU across the county administration and the city to try to thwart administrative changes, you know, new county executives coming into office and that being a threat.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, we haven't gone anywhere with it. So I don't know if it's possible or if there's any other models out there that could be helpful with that.
Yeah, I don't know. Because I think about it even here, like if our administration changed and they had different priorities, like easily they could say, well, we're not going to spend as much money on the business stuff, or we don't need this database anymore because it's too expensive. And then that would be a resource lost.
How do you, going along those lines then, much like you have like an individual in a community needing to justify funding within your organization, are you concerned with, or do you have a means to measure the impact that you have within the specific area of entrepreneur support, be able to justify and be resilient to administration changes or political whims inside the organization?
So that is one of the things that especially our department does really well. And we have started collecting surveys from a lot of our patrons after programs, or we have one that goes out once a month to our small business resources email list. And we're really collecting that data to kind of build that story of this is why it's important. And when we do the one-on-one sessions, we try to get some anecdata, right? Like some anecdotal feedback on what are the things they liked, what are the things they didn't, you know, what are we missing out on, that kind of thing. And so we are, and because of all of the work we've done with that, our library just got asked to help the Urban Library Council in like a sub group within our entrepreneurship division to talk about and figure out what are the things we should be tracking, that kind of thing.
That's pretty cool. And you know, thinking about Goal 5 and the measures, and libraries are so good at tracking and collecting data. The case is built stronger and stronger for library systems to really be that cohesive, convening place for the ecosystem. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, when we have, there have been a couple partners, like in fact, Operation Hope was one of them. My contact here, he came and he did a program here, and he was like, I had, you know, 30 some odd people signed up and 20 people came, and he was just like, that's crazy to me. And he was so happy that 20 people had shown for this program that he was putting on. And so, but I hear that a lot from people that, you know, we kind of have this built-in community of people who are thirsty for information. And I think that's something that's really strong for libraries.
So I have a question, or continuing on that topic, because one of the key challenges in the ecosystems is, of course, exactly the information about the ecosystem itself. So who is who, what organizations exist, what services do they provide, and so forth. And this kind of let's call it the ecosystem hub or ecosystem portal, as for information, whether that's events, services, funding sources, mentors, angel networks, and so forth. All of that information, it could also include the startups at their different development stages, or entrepreneurship count in the specific industries, and so forth. But this is typically information that kind of everyone in the ecosystem, from their organization perspective as well as their individual role perspective, identify as highly valuable, whether it's someone who is starting as an entrepreneur, whether it's an organization looking to see if they are overlapping some other organization services, or whether it's foreign entrepreneurs or investors coming from outside the city or state or country to enter, is that how they can kind of recognize the ecosystem and how they can start navigating and where to start and so forth. At the same time, it's very well identified that that role doesn't naturally belong to anyone existing one organization, and it poorly fits with an extension of existing organizations that are already doing an entrepreneurship support function, more specifically, usually because it tends to become biased. In some sense, let's say if it's a university, then it suddenly becomes the university as the center of the ecosystem. And at the same time, it's very educational or specific type of dimension to it only. So a very neutral actor is needed to hold that information. And at the same time, it needs to be someone who has extensive historical proof of sustainability as an organization, and then also potentially a good network to collaborate with expanding the similar function. So if connecting that back with the problem of libraries not being identified themselves as a good source of resources for entrepreneurs, operating such function would make it obvious or a good position to also promote the services of library itself out of these services. And in Finland, where I'm based, here we have great libraries, and we have also great systems that they have provided these free spaces, computer software systems, laser cutters, 3D printers, as well as many things, but not perhaps so much about this type of pointing to more data type of thing. But I'm just kind of very interested in kind of what may be the potential of kind of combining those missing need or role in the space, and then also the challenge of libraries to promote themselves more into the ecosystem as a key actor, because ultimately a database of ecosystem functions and activities is data and information that someone needs to provide, and seems to be very natural fit here. Has there been anything around that? Conversations elsewhere?
So yeah, so basically we libraries, a lot of libraries create what we call libguides, library guides, and those often are lists of resources and things like that. And so I was keeping one basically of the ecosystem that we posted on our website that anyone could access, and it would have, you could sort by who's giving funding, who's a co-working space, who's doing this, that kind of thing. But we are very fortunate here in St. Louis that Missouri SourceLink exists, because they have kind of taken that really away from us because they do such an excellent job of keeping all of the organizations and being very agnostic with it. And so actually I found out, I was talking to the woman over there, and I was like, oh, you know, I'm going to stop keeping up my list because, you know, basically you guys have kind of taken over this. And she was like, oh, you know, I pulled a lot of the people that when I started creating this database, like from your list at the library. And so we kind of had a good chuckle about that. But so I think that it's definitely something that libraries probably have been doing and can do to kind of create that repository, if you will, of all of the different places, because we are always trying to figure out where can we send people for this information, because the first place people think of is, I don't know where to get that information, I'm going to call the library and just find out. So I don't know if Missouri SourceLink has plans to go global and national and things like that, but I know at least here they are an excellent resource for exactly what you're talking about.
Is that something that we could do as a community to share it widely? Or I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. Like, is there a need? What is it that we could put together that would help?
Are you asking me, like, what can the community do for libraries?
Actually, I'm asking all of you, because, you know, one of the things in some of the goal work is the tools, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is a toolkit. And I know that there's talk about the marketplace and what that also becomes. So right now the marketplace is more of a directory, but I'm wondering if there are tangible tools, or, you know, here's where you can download the playbook, here's where you can, I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing out ideas. What do you think? Is it a resource, Mel? Do you feel more for entrepreneurs or ecosystem builders? Right.
I mean, I think it's kind of both, because I know as an ecosystem builder, I'm always going to Missouri SourceLink to see what other organizations now exist that I can connect with, that kind of thing. And, you know, who else am I missing out on? Who am I not telling entrepreneurs when they come in about? And then who else can we do a program with that exists out there that's doing similar work, or that might fill a gap where we don't have programming?
The SourceLink, like, it's a good resource for a city. Out of Casey SourceLink, Missouri SourceLink, they have a few other ones there. So as a system or a platform to collect information, map it out, and present events and what's happening, huge value in that. It's fascinating hearing about your story as far as, in the absence of anything, maintaining your own map, almost like a personal passion, leveraging the LibGuide framework within libraries. Mm-hmm. The other thing I really loved about what you said, Mel, is that coming back to the core principle of a library, somebody saying, I don't know where to find the information, so I go to the library. And then from that core then expresses out, whether it's for entrepreneurs, whether it's for history data, whether it's for creative media, arts, whatever that is. But you also are very clear on that is all we do. And you stick to your core. So you're not necessarily, if you do the research for them, you'll charge for that. Anything extra on top, but your core is like a conduit information, which is then express itself and evolve with the times as we need to support entrepreneurs more. And then other things come along which like do a particular function very well, much as like mapping the ecosystem like SourceLink does. And you also have Deal Room. There's like 2 or 3 other platforms out there that do that kind of thing. I think, and going on to Cecilia's comment, it's something that you said at the start of the conversation. If we could have anything as a result of this, I think it's really making the case and providing that playbook for libraries themselves, not even a playbook for the ecosystem, but much like the council may be trying to do. What is the role of a library, and how can they maximize that within an ecosystem, and how does that scale for a town of 5,000, 50,000, 500,000, and really equipping those libraries to say, here's the role you could play if you chose to in the ecosystem. I love the thinking around that. And I'd be interested, Mel, in what you think is the next steps. Like, what does the future hold for libraries? What would better equip libraries to play a role in the ecosystem overall in supporting entrepreneurs and small business?
Honestly, I think a knowledge of how they even can help small businesses and other ecosystem builders. I still think that there's a lot of libraries who don't realize that they have all these tools that can play a role. And, they probably still traditionally think of themselves as, straight reference librarians who answer whatever question comes their way. And it doesn't matter if it's a business question or an economy question or a workforce development question, it's just a question. And so I think it's really kind of about arming them with the knowledge of how they can play in that space and everything that they do have to offer to help people in the ecosystem. So I think there's even, we talk a lot about how do we get people to know that this exists, like how do we get just regular ecosystem builders and everybody to kind of be on board. I think there's still a lot of library workers who don't really see themselves as a place for business.
That's great,
That's a shame.
thanks.
We need to change that narrative, don't we?
Yeah.
Because I think all of us on this call are real big cheerleaders for this. And I can tell you, as invaluable as an entrepreneur to be able to go to my local library and have the research librarian help me cull information. And then, like I mentioned at the beginning of this call, when I contacted, and it's funny because I contacted both Mel and Martha, and both of them sent like amazing information for this young lady to do her pitch competition. So, does anybody have anything else to add, or?
Mel, when I was remembering my interacting with the research librarian at Montana State University in Bozeman in the very early days of the internet, and they had this wildly popular course on how to tell, with all this information at our fingertips, what's the right information, and how do you detect the crap. And of course, by now, I'm sure we've all figured out how the internet, there's nothing but truth on the internet. but it seems, do you guys help people to be good consumers of information? As librarians, that made a lot of sense. And what Janet had done was to start with, she did it as something for a marketing class, and she ended up with 100 people or more in a small city. It's even in the mid late 90s, people were hungry to how to be a good consumer of information, how to have a critical eye to it. So do you do a lot of that? Because certainly there's a lot of conflicting market information, other things that entrepreneurs have to sift through. So you guys should be the experts. Is that something you guys do?
Yes, absolutely. So that's probably the number one thing we do is we show them where to go to find the right information for what they're searching for. Because, we, like I said earlier, we have resources that we subscribe to at the library, but there are a lot of really good data resources out there that, are open access or have some free component to them, and you can find information out there. So it's really just connecting people with those resources and saying, hey, did you know about eMarketer? Did you know about Nielsen data? Like, have you gone to these websites instead of just reading, an article on like whatever website it is that you read, and not knowing where they got their information from. So yeah, it's definitely a lot about educating people on where to go for the right information.
Well, the reason I ask that is that one of the goals we have is about goal 5 is about helping our colleagues, helping everyone to be better consumers of information. That, how do we know that, every week, I'm in Boise, Idaho, every other week there is a story and we are in the top 10 list of something, then the next week we're in the bottom 10 of something that seems terribly similar. And it's been, been a struggle to sort of educate people on the subtleties of this. Any advice that you have, any resources you have on how to be a good information data consumer?
Yeah, I would say just kind of pay attention to where the data is ultimately coming from. If you are on a website and you can't see very clearly like where the data came from, then maybe you need to dig a little deeper and figure out what the source of that data was. And just kind of be aware of what some of the top good places for data are. We have the census data, we have a lot of different government data resources out there that you can utilize and are freely accessible. So.
Yeah, thanks. There are some terrific resources but there are some awfully sexy resources that are not. When you said this, I was looking at one of these statistics, and Boise did not score Idaho didn't score it really badly on. I'm going, well, that can't be true. And then I realized the data is coming from Startup Genome, and I go, oh crap, it's true. That identifying the credible sources, and again, while we can learn this on by ourselves, is any pointers that you have for helping the average consumer to sort through this?
So yeah, I mean, again, so just kind of figuring out where that data is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
So like you said, where is this data coming from? And I think that's something that people aren't really asking a lot of. And so just even taking that first step to ask that question and then look up, okay, it's Nielsen data. Well, who is Nielsen? And then go to their website and just kind of do that double check of, oh, okay, they're pretty well-known marketing, national marketing. So this is probably a pretty trusted data type of situation.
So you want to encourage people to be, to be questioning, because I will bet Nielsen data is probably not as good as it used to be,
Sure.
but it's still might probably still be really good. In economic data, the government may change the definition, of that data series, and suddenly it's saying something different because it really is different data, but it still has the same label to it.
Right.
But is getting people to do that, because the temptation, like with businesses, for vanity metrics that make you look really good, but may be useless or worse, dangerous. That is, so being the sort of eternal vigilance is figuring out where the data is coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And just because other people use that data series doesn't mean it's real.
Yeah,
I will admit on the academic side, there was this data that I thought was total crap. And then I found out that one of the people who collected it was me. That was quite embarrassing, but a good lesson in humility. Anyway, thank you, Mel. I've thrown out some props to you on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So
Thanks.
Exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I think one of the things that I want to stress and I want to share on this call is as we put the call recording on the dashboard and hopefully maybe share it out to, I promised Martha at my local library that I would share the recording with her, but maybe we can share with other people as well. One of the things that I stressed to Mel is I know that in the Tulsa Public Library, in their research library system, they will do a set amount of, and I don't know if this was mentioned, but a set amount of data research for you for a fee. And if the goal is sustainable work, I think we have to still also consider the sustainability of our libraries in saying that that tool, while it's free and available for everybody, if you want somebody like a research librarian to do this work for you, that the library itself should be compensated for that effort. So if it's, I don't know, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of, I hope, don't quote me, it's like $70 or $75 an hour or something like that. But a research librarian doing that research for you will get you more tactical, like not wasting your time going down rabbit holes, like chunk of research for you in that hour than you could have in like 3 to 5 hours, right? So because they know where to look, what to pull from, and give you a comprehensive report, and there you go, as opposed to you being shown how to do it and do it. So you have to gauge your time and efforts and your resources that way. But I don't think that it should be something that a librarian, a library system saying, because we all say, oh, it's a free public resource, and so it shouldn't cost us anything. But really, the time that they spend on your stuff is time they've taken away sharing and helping other people. So so I don't think that we should be shy. Just like as ecosystem builders, we shouldn't necessarily be shy about saying, this is my value and this is what I bring. And so I expect to be financially compensated. You know, compensating the library for that, I think is okay. So I just wanted to put that out there. Beth, do you have any other closing remarks, or any of the other people on the call?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if maybe, and certainly let's see who else has something to say, but if we could popcorn around just to, what did you learn today? And what are you going to do with what you learned? That would be awesome.
You gonna pick somebody? I can't answer. I wasn't on the whole call, so.
All right, I will pick Balto.
Thanks. Yeah, so I definitely, first of all, even though I know that these services exist, even myself, I forget oftentimes library and kind of like as a resource for myself and also to help others. So there's something to kind of really get that deeper into our own and thinking to also. And the other part is definitely that there is so much out there, and there is genuine right values and the right kind of mindset that is very well balanced for that type of role. That also how the entrepreneurs, what type of needs they have. That we need to promote it more. We need to really kind of explore these paths more. However ways we can kind of do that. It makes perfect sense. And I'll pick chat.
Great, thanks, Balto. Absolutely enlightening and eye-opening. Here in Australia, we don't have, I can't think of any libraries that function in that way, even in the major cities. Most of them are from a passive perspective of just providing information. So it was really impacting as far as the role and how you described all the functions of a typical innovation hub, making the connections, pathways to access to funding, creating an initial ecosystem map, providing access to different data sources, things like that, but also leveraging some of the core things that no one else has, really sticking to your knitting on what is core, and then kind of divesting yourself of and allowing other people to step up where it's not. It's really cool. And as far as takeaways and what's next, really guiding the direction of some of my own personal research and some of the focus that I have in regional areas on how do we build up the libraries, and happy to contribute and participate in any sort of overarching data gathering and research component to help contribute to that playbook on specific role of libraries as a type of hub in community areas. So well done. Norris, over to you.
Well, like Balto, it was quite a reminder. I sat there, if you saw me sort of like zooming off, it was sort of memories of great experiences it had in the past. When I was first back in the dark ages before the internet, teaching in grad school is, you know, the library, the students were doing their entrepreneurship or strategy projects. It was just always a delight to go over and help them see just how much amazing information was there. I was at Ohio State, and they had a library of research reports from stock brokerages in New York City. You have these guys who are analyzing different industries, and they have a real vested interest in being right, getting everything, seeing the things that other people aren't seeing was an absolute goldmine. And then my students would actually call up or write these big time Wall Street analysts who'd give them the information that they normally sell. I mean, there's just, gotta love librarians, gotta love people who like to share information. And I think there's probably there are things that we can do, Mel, with this urban libraries. I've seen everything I read on that website applies to rural, I think. Anything we can do to help this. I'm going to go, before the end of the day, I'm going to go to the research librarian at here in Boise and give her a big thank you. And to the boss, Beth.
Beth.
But Mel, thank you. This has been very insightful and appreciated. And for me, again, it confirms a lot of my beliefs that the libraries as the hub for entrepreneurship and communities is a great idea. As I'm the president of the board of our libraries foundation here, so I am in a unique position to be able to kind of influence adding more of this type of activity. So again, just further confirms and makes me feel a little bit more confident in that direction. So thank you.
Mel, what did you learn?
You guys asked a lot of really great questions. So I think I learned that I'm immersed in it every day. And so I think, oh yeah, like, of course, ecosystem builders know that this is there, but I think it was a good reminder that like, I just have to keep doing what I'm doing, keep reminding people, because even if they know, sometimes they forget. So.
Great, thank you. And as this call gets uploaded, I will definitely share with you on a separate link so that you can all share out to your local librarians, and Mel to her wonderful director for letting her join us in this call today and how important that work is. So extremely appreciated for them sharing your time with us. And thank you, Beth, and everybody else for leading this in my quick absence, trying to.
And Mel, tell Trevor we're all going to be over for coffee later.
Awesome. I'll let him know.
Great. Well, thank you again. I hope everybody has a great day, and we'll look forward to speaking with you all soon next time.
Yeah, and please, anyone that has ideas for next month's call, please email us all and let's do it. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.